of the day. Have you guys seen this absolutely hilarious picture? Hilarious picture. Hilarious picture. Featuring Dave Chappelle at, I guess, his show that he does on tour with Joe Rogan. I think it was recently because the picture of Joe taken with him in his tux with young Jamie and a few other people that are at the show too. But I know it's just an angle thing because clearly, yeah, perception angle thing because clearly Dave Chappelle's closer to the camera and Joe's obviously a bit behind, so it makes him look smaller than what he is. But Jesus Christ, Joe Rogan is fucking tiny, innit? Like, and I think someone said, I forgot who it was. Maybe it was Chase Hopper or something, or Hooper. I've got his name. He didn't ask me anything on the Fat and the Kid subreddit, which is really cool. I want to check it out actually later. But he said that he's been around Joe Rogan and seen him in real life, and he says he thinks he's more closer to 5'5" than he's listed height on Google. I think there's like 5'8" or something. But people say he's 5'5", and I think a lot of people said that because they say he maybe wears lifts or chunky shoes. But this man is tiny, isn't it? Really tiny. So I want to know, people in the stream chat, right? Because let's count Dave Chappelle out of this. But if you could have Joe Rogan's bank balance, right? Especially for something like that's, I wouldn't say easy, but a job that doesn't require crazy amounts of manual labor. Like whatever your dream job is. Let's say it's not podcast, let's say it's something else. But if you could make, whatever he makes, right? 300 million on a deal, 50 million. I think before that, people were saying he was making anywhere between like 30 to 60 million per year off his podcast alone from like AdSense on Google, on YouTube and shit, sponsors, blah, 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 blah. If you can make that kind of money that Joe Rogan does, but you have to, be okay with not having any hair in your 30s all the way until whatever age he is now, 50, and also being 5'5", would you take it? I want to know in the stream chat. And I guess for women, the equivalent would be what? If you could have your dream job, but then you'd have to, I don't know. Imagine, yeah, if you're a woman, you have your dream job, but you have to look like Susan Boyle. Let's put that up there. Yeah, let's do that one. So for the ladies in the stream chat, if you could make those, the same amount of money that Joe Rogan does, but you have to look like Susan Boyle, right? Would you take it? I want to know in the stream chat. Please let me know. Because I'm in two minds. I'm not really too sure if I'd be that much happy about it. Being 5'5", having no hair in my 30s. Because the bald thing doesn't really bother me too much. If I went bald in my late 50s or whatever, fair. I've had a good run with hair. But going bald in your 30s is pretty brutal. But then also being 5'5" is pretty brutal. But then having the bank balance that he does is pretty nice. Do you know what I mean? Where you can just do whatever the hell you want. What would you prefer? What would you prefer, please? Because would you prefer to be 5'5" like this, have all the money in the world if you're a man, or if you're a lady, right, and look like Susan Boyle but have a crazy bank balance? Let me know. Give me Joe Rogan money and I'll go through transition with potato shin. Oh yeah, true. You could also, you could, if you wanted to, if you're Joe, you could also get that surgery that people are getting now, innit, where they're breaking their legs and then putting them back together again to make them taller, or like adding extensions to it and stuff. Yes, spinning back kick my ass. I'm boarding in my 20s. I'm 21 and I'm only 5'8". Yeah, okay, cool. So okay, Teju, you say you're boarding in your 20s, cool. But let's say now you are, you know, you are, what you call it? What's that word called? You are a couple inches shorter than what you are now. Would you have that and have Joe Rogan's bank balance? Would you be happy with that? Do you care about your height? I don't know, because I get the feeling Joe has a little bit of small man syndrome. He does that thing where he sits like he sits on chairs how Donald Trump stands, innit? Have you noticed that? Donald Trump stands like a fucking minotaur, innit? Do you know what I mean? In terms of how he tries to maximize as much as he can, so all the inches are up above and shit. And obviously he wears lifts as well. That's pretty obvious. But yeah, Joe does kind of the same thing on chairs. So I think he's a bit conscious, because I think it doesn't matter if you're not conscious about your height, it won't matter. So you just take his bank balance anyway. Fuck it. You can basically buy people's silence with your money, as he's obviously done. Because the other thing about Joe too, he's so tiny, right? Like he legitimately looks like a leprechaun. But no one says anything because of Joe Rogan. No one even teases him that much about it. It's really kind of like done in a really kind of cloak and dagger way, like hee hee ha ha, but no one really rips into him the way they probably should if he's a comedian, right? But because he's fucking Joe Rogan, you kind of don't want to do that to the male Oprah. What are people saying here? I can't be any shorter than 5'6". F the money. Exactly. See what I mean? There you go, Teju. You know, you've been there. So add and then imagine the fucking HGH gut, the massive head. Marty says, I'm 6 foot with a full head of hair. Joe can have it for 400 million. True, okay. Full. Dennis Michael says, would have the motivations to get that kind of cash if he didn't have the little bit to prove. That's good point, Dennis Michaels. If he was, if Joe Rogan, what's his name? Gordon Ryan. Yeah. If Joe Rogan looked like Gordon Ryan, he probably wouldn't have the motivation to be. Uh, is Gordon Ryan even tall? I don't know if he's tall. Maybe he's not tall, but let me show a bad example. But if Gordon Ryan's plus 6 foot and he also looks the way he does, would Joe Rogan be Joe Rogan now? Probably not, right? Maybe not. I don't really sure. Maybe Gordon Ryan's a good example because he's already Gordon Ryan. But like maybe the fact that Joe's a little leprechaun, right? Maybe that actually helped him in terms of his success. Like he had to prove himself in some way because that's what probably got him into fighting, right? Because he says a lot of times that he got into fighting. What was it? No, he was always a lifelong martial artist. Was it? I thought it's because of security guard stuff. I'm not really too sure what the law is about him getting into martial arts, but he's been practicing martial arts for a long time. Maybe because he got beaten up one time. I think that might be the story. He may got beat up when he was younger, and I think he didn't like the feeling of feeling helpless, the kind of common thing that every guy goes through where you kind of get beaten up by somebody that knows how to fight and it makes you kind of question life in general. I know it happened to me. I remember being in a fight in school against this kid that used to box, and all I remember when I was fighting him was that I kept seeing like flashes. Like I kept like doing this, like flicking my head back and forth, and every time I kept swinging, I kept missing, like all the time. And it just kept like that. This guy felt like a ninja to me, and then I remember like it was incredibly humbling because it made you think, oh shit, if this guy can do this to me, imagine what XYZ person could do to me, sort of thing. And it kind of makes you realize, okay, cool, you're not as tough as you are, and also get in the gym, go practice. You need to learn how to fight properly. So maybe that is part of it as well. But god damn, this man is tiny, like legit tiny, but he does a good job of hiding it. Do you know what I mean? I think in general, because he sits down all the time. He's not really about at most places. I just think it's funny. It's not. It doesn't really mean anything. Who gives a fuck? Because he's still, he's still a huge inspiration to me. I've been following the guy since 400 episodes deep and stuff, but it's not something anyone really talks about in general, because they're probably wise. They're probably way smarter than I am, and probably know it's a bit of a career suicide thing. But again, I'm not trying to be a stand-up comedian anytime soon, so I don't really give a fuck. But god damn, the guy is short, innit? Legit short. And let's not talk about Dave Chappelle wearing a hoodie with his name on it. Like, I don't know. I love Dave sometimes, but the fact that he gives all the comedians on his show that fucking really cringy necklace. You seen that Dave Chappelle necklace thing he gives all his comedian friends, and they wear it around their neck like it's a Rockefeller chain. Like, like, come on, man. Have some dignity, have some pride. But hey, Joe Rogan's small, Joe Rogan's short. Big breaking news there.